The main character, Richie, is he's being raised by a guardian who's really very hostile to him, and he just really wants to leave. And he's been a Boy Scout for many years, and he knows how to live in the woods. And the woods here in Missouri are a wonderful place to be. They're just beautiful. So he decides he's running away to the woods. And the man, Morris, is he's a Vietnam veteran accused of bothering a white woman. And then he realized that, that's how his grandfather was lynched. So he ran off to the woods, and that's where he's going to stay.
One thing that I will say about the story is I was so impressed by the nature writing. You really, as you're talking about the beauty of Missouri, and that all very much comes through. I almost feel at times it's like The Yearling, if people will remember that. Just this wonderful natural world that you create, and it's very strong and impressive, and just a part of an element of the story that I just fell in love with.
Thank you.
Sure. I'd also just, it's so interesting because you feel that this is truly a work of art, that this is true writing, and done so well. And I just, how do you conjure up this? How did you come up with this? Why did you want to do it? How do you work on a day-to-day basis with your writing?
Well, I wanted to write a story with an empathy arc. There were a young person needs more empathy and develops it through a friendship. So that's where I started. Mm-hmm. So my day-to-day routine, I try to work about 2 hours a day. I mean, I had a number of different empathy storylines set in 1969, and I've just been kind of tinkering with it. So what really caused me to think, oh, I'm maybe onto something here, was the riots in Ferguson, which is here in St. Louis, of course. Mm-hmm. And St. Louis is such a needy city. The northern half of it is just full of needs, and the southern half, and the western part are full of people who are just pretty blind to those needs. And I just see such a need here. The lynching in the book is portrayed in a non-graphic manner, but it does show this. It's a true story, this lynching of James T. Scott in Columbia, Missouri, 1923. And there was an eyewitness who wrote a lot. He was a newspaper reporter. So I was able to take all that and get a really good feel on the page for what it was like. And it was like a party. It was shocking. The whole town turned out. They were, just getting, hanging out with the booze and the having a picnic. Mm-hmm. And, they brought their kids. Oh. It was shocking. It's shocking too. So you could discuss that in a classroom on the subject of, what is man really capable of? People that we thought, somebody like, myself or you, just right. Kind of a normal person. What's actually inside there? What are we capable of? And of course, there are other situations you could talk about, like Nazi collaborators or whatever, and these people who just, they go the safe way, or they don't want a buck convention, and it's something that I think could benefit from a classroom. I was a child in Jim Crow, Mississippi, and I remember the whites only signs on the drinking fountains and the restrooms. And I remember the conventions that they had, where you don't sit down in the presence of another race. Mm-hmm. And I had neighbors then. They black neighbors. They lived about a half a mile away, and they lived in these shacks. And I didn't actually know these people, but I was curious. I was a kid, So I bet they did not have plumbing. The shacks looked like, something you'd see at a camp, just small, no insulation, sort of a wooden shack.
Hmm.
So fast forward a number of years, here I am living in St. Louis, this segregated city, and my husband and I, we raised our children there for 20 years. And we had some wonderful neighbors, and I did get to know them, and they opened their culture to me, and it was great. So I believe that because of those experiences, I have experienced things that most other Americans have not, most other white Americans have not.
Right.
I think that there is room for a story about a white protagonist who goes through this empathy arc.
And it's not just me who's saying this is an excellent book. I mean, we've had responses. You've gotten excellent responses from other people. Tell us about that, because people should know, how this is affecting other people.
Well, I have a sensitivity reader, LaShonda Hoffman. She is an author here, raised in St. Louis, so she knows what I'm writing about. She says, I have read this book and enjoyed its characters. I like the friendship that blossomed in the story, and it came full circle in the end. It was a good history lesson without being offensive to anyone. I believe this book can make a difference because right now the United States is dealing with a lot of racial issues. The storyline shares a little about why we have racial tension in this country. And then John Hendricks, who's a New York Times bestselling author and illustrator, has also seen the manuscript. And he says, it's full of interesting characters. The Long Shadow has heart, humor, and a great overall theme. Complex subject matter woven into enjoyable fantasy.
That is so true. Just a personal question to you. Who would you like to read this?
I want to reach anybody who needs to, who's gotten kind of set in their friend circle and has, and needs to reach out. No, we're all wired for stranger danger. So there's this problem inside all of us, and we have to work against it and reach out to find that empathy. And we all need to be aware of history, especially situations like that, like a lynching, or like the fact that there were many lynchings in America in the early 20th century. It was not uncommon, especially in the South, of course. So I think that we need to know about these situations, and because we don't want to repeat it. What awful situation could be in the future where something similar might happen. We don't want to repeat it. Right.
And I know that Oprah has been very involved in bringing this subject matters to the attention of people. It's fascinating, important, and I would recommend it for any young person or even someone like myself who, really needs to know this history. And so I thank you for doing what you did to write this book. I also want to bring up the fact that you're a writer who's writing, every day, doing a lot of projects. And what are you working on next? And, I'd love for people to get a hold of you if they would like to correspond with you. How would they get in contact with you?
Next is a middle grade book that's about a much lighter subject, a girl who has superpowers for fixing things. And I'm also working on some picture books.
Oh, that's cool.
I'm having a good time.
I also want to say that the book is very entertaining. While these issues are involved in the book, this is truly a book that will capture young people, I like to say boys even, and give them something to think about, but also something to enjoy. because that really is what your style can do for people. Very
Thank you.
enjoyable trek that we go on. PhyllisWheeler.com is the place to get a hold of you. And now I will say thank you so much for talking with me today. And to our viewers, I want to say thank you very much for listening in. Hopefully we'll have more segments like this, and maybe we'll even get a chance to get Phyllis back one day. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.